Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Larry Mazza. All right, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, but Billy, I gotta tell you, I try to get out. They keep pulling me back in. It's crazy.
A lot of talk going on out there right now.
Yeah, I'll say, but I got a question. Doesn't this guy have anything better to do than slander me and call me a liar?
Larry come up with the story that my father was fumbling the bullets.
There's nothing else in the world he can do. He's just got to come out and hurl these nonsense accusations. It's silly. It's stupid. He's being put up to it by somebody.
The next day we had to leave it over there.
Yeah, we had to leave it there, and the next day we brought it back.
And keys from St. Pete.
Because he gets caught in all kinds of lies, and he's calling me a liar. It's crazy. Crazy.
It's very crazy. A lot of people are talking. It's all over the internet. This big feud between Larry Mazza and Greg Scarpo.
Yeah, and it started over an RV that I gave him.
About that. Let's talk about the RV and how this all transpired, because he brought this up in a recent interview.
Yeah.
He said about the RV.
Yep.
But he tweaked the story a little bit.
How?
He said that somebody else was driving the RV and it got left somewhere, filling a ditch, and then it got 2-3 flat tires. But
it got to a point that we were going to now go somewhere else. Okay. And I told him that you could take it back. They says, you don't want it? I said, no, I said, you could take it back. It's really, it's costing me a lot of money, because it's older and So with that, he sends a couple of guys over here to pick it up, okay? And the thing with me and Maria fell through this apartment that we were going to get, all right? And we hear that the thing got stuck, a couple of flats somewhere, Sarasota or something. It was far, okay? And Well, let me go back a minute, because I forgot this, okay, that I didn't know at the time, was actually Maria took it.
But
he says you called the police and...
Well, let me explain. Yeah, we did call the police, because he told me he had this big blow up with his girlfriend, told me she's a nut, worse than the last girlfriend, who we all know was a nut too, so she attacked him. And she took the van. She took the RV. It's a 37-foot Winnebago that was remodeled, that you could live in very comfortably. And again, I gave it to him with no strings attached. Okay.
Yeah, but so when did you get the RV, and how did it even transpire for him to get an RV?
Okay. All right. Okay. I got the RV probably 10 years earlier. We bought it from somebody in Iowa. It was sitting in a barn, literally in a barn, for 15 years. The old people never used it. It was beautiful, but old. So we took it, remodeled it, modernized it, and we used it several times. Once the gas prices went, berserk, it didn't make sense anymore. You're better off flying and using a hotel. So I had it in my driveway at the gym, and we had air conditioning on, so it was never getting moldy, nothing wrong with it. Beautiful. Okay. He was living with his brother for a while, who he doesn't talk to anymore. And we can get to that. Which is ridiculous. And then after they stopped talking, well, I'll tell you why. Because there was an argument between him and his brother that was made public, that we all heard on Facebook. And I called him on it. I said, what the hell is that all about? And he tried to downplay it, whatever. But him and his brother don't talk anymore. Then he's living with his sister, Debbie. Everything's fine. Debbie's a sweetheart. He's got a beautiful husband, fantastic guy. Gregory gets the girlfriend. At that point, he finds a girlfriend. And of course, he needs privacy. He wants to move on. He calls me, asks me if he could have the RV. He didn't say to give it to him as a gift, which it would have been, because I was never going to ask for it back. He could have lived there.
He just wanted to use it, right?
To take it as long as, right.
Yeah.
So go a step further. I take a day out of my life and drive over there. I leave probably 8 in the morning. told my wife to follow, but don't come for about 3 hours. I said, because you're going to be doing 80. I can't go more than 55 or 60. It's 30 cents. It's a big RV. So I get there probably 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Kelly gets there shortly after me, and we set it all up for them. It was like Christmas morning to them. They had their own little place. We showed them how to use the awning, everything in there, and they called Kelly for days and days as they found something new that they needed to work on or to fix or to learn how to use. At no time did we expect them to go driving around with it.
Yeah, okay? This isn't something that you just drive around and go to the store and this and
absolutely
that. It stays where it is.
Right. So he made a comment about the propane. I told him that day, you just call up, they come right to the lot and put propane in. You don't have to drive the van somewhere to get the RV somewhere to get propane. There's no reason to move it if you live in it. You have cars. You know, you both had cars. What do you want to drive that for? But I never gave that any thought, really, thinking that. So going back to this night, wind up is he goes through all this. There's cops there, and he's having to separate. So he has to leave. She takes the RV.
There was nothing wrong. I mean, she's got a license, and she was taught how to do it. You brought it to her. You gave it to her.
He tells me this. Now I'm worried, and I have every right to be worried that, God forbid, she runs somebody over. That's all I cared about.
So the RV's gone out of the lot.
I don't care about the RV. I don't care about their fight.
He's still there, right? At the lot.
Yeah. He's still there with his brother-in-law, Joe, my dear friend, who I still talk to. The RV's gone. So I'm only worried about if something happens.
She had to go get her daughter, okay, and I had taken her car, all right, because it was under my name, and we were having a little beef at that time. And what happened was she took the RV. Guess what he did? I told him, I said, you know, Larry, I said, right now the RV is missing. But I'm making a joke out of it, you know. But then I saw that they got an attitude.
If she runs somebody over, destroys somebody's property, it's going to be on us. So, yeah, I called the cops. I didn't call the cops and say, Gregory and his girlfriend stole my RV. I said the RV was stolen, period. Okay? I had to have that on record. Now, if she goes and kills somebody or herself or anybody, I can't get sued because it's a stolen vehicle. Okay, and it was reported stolen. Goes through 3 counties. I had to have 2 friends come from Tampa, which is 2.5 hours away, to help find it. Finally, they found it with the help of the local county police and whatever.
How long did it take to find the RV?
Oh, the next day. It was overnight. This went on overnight into the next day. And again, my wife was on the phone with the 3rd county where the thing was heard to be because Kelly was talking to the girl's daughter.
Was she picking up the phone at all? The woman that took you?
No, we spoke to the daughter and she pointed us into the direction where it would be. All we wanted was to get it back if they were done. I'm thinking they're finished, so fine, we'll take it back, whatever. So the 2 guys that go, they tell me the thing is trashed, it's a wreck. And honestly, he's doing his podcast from the RV. It doesn't look that bad, to be honest. So maybe it was just dirty or it was ruffled up a little bit from the her taking it. I don't know.
But you haven't seen the whole thing.
No, I haven't. And I really don't. Again, I don't care. All right. Once we got it back and my friends took the plate off of it and destroyed the plate, we were in the clear. Now he calls me the next day that they kissed and made up and everything should just be put in the past and they want the RV back and this and that. So she's on the phone and she's telling Gregory that you could keep it. We're signing it over to you. We'll send you the paperwork or we'll send it to the car dealer that we both know, whatever it was. And it got officially signed over to him. But she says, do not ever call me again. Because she was upset over the whole thing too. And somewhere in that point, we hear the girlfriend yelling and screaming and you guys are rats. You called the cops on me. You want to have me arrested. So I took the phone and I told her, shut your mouth. None of that happened. Just stop it. Then he got back on the phone and then we started getting loud with each other. Exactly who got louder? What's the difference? He said some nasty things. I said some nasty things. Big deal. Big deal. I'm nobody anymore. He's nobody anymore. We left that life behind. You want to argue and fight like one man to another? That's fine. The other world is behind us. Okay. So now we hang up. At that point, I figure it'll cool down. We get these frigging calls, one after the other, after the other. I'm talking like 50 calls. Then I found out they did the same thing to Debbie. They just kept calling and calling. So I blocked them. I blocked him off every avenue possible, just so I didn't have to live with this every day. Okay. I didn't need it, don't want it, and don't care. So Kelly still didn't block them until she started getting all the calls too. Then she blocked them. Also, on some of those calls, when his name came up, it said plus one other. They were taping our calls.
And that's how that argument came onto the internet, right?
The first one with the brother, yes. So now we hear from Debbie, the sister, that they're doing the same thing to her. They're calling her and they see the second, they know they're taping it. The brother knew it. Other family members of his from Brooklyn and Jersey who asked not to be mentioned, and I won't. So, of course, he's going to say I'm lying because I won't put them on that spot, are saying, what is going on? What's wrong with him? What happened to him? Why is he being like this? And I try to explain. Something, someone, or both has polluted his brain. You could see it in his interviews. You could just see he's not right. Okay? He's got, I don't even know what the word is for me for no reason. Because after all these years of doing things together and being friends and me helping him when he came home, and I'm not looking for a badge for that. Okay? I did that, and I'll say it for the last time because I'm not going to keep doing these idiotic, childish shows. Okay? I always said I'll answer. I never initiate. And once I'm done, I'm done. Okay? But we go back a long time. And for him, something happened. Something other than me shutting him off. Maybe it had a little bit to do with finances, but I helped him a lot because I know his father fucked him. Excuse my language. I know tough guys curse a lot, and I don't. I hate using that word.
But he's changing his tune on his father, too.
Worse.
Now.
Well, yeah, but worse than anybody else. Okay? His father helped people without helping him. Okay? And, you could see the original interview we did together. The chemistry, the camaraderie, the agreement on stuff, all of a sudden, that's all a lie. He was sitting there just doing, what was he sitting there? Why? If I was such a bad guy, okay, and I'm not a tough guy, why didn't you just put me in my place right on that interview? Why didn't you say something then? Why you wait until we had this stupid thing over the RV? Not even the RV, the fact that I could have been sued and I'm the bad guy. That's why I got upset. And then he brought up the assault, that I just beat an assault charge and I want to fight everybody.
When did this assault happen? Was the assault before the RV situation?
Yeah.
It was.
No, it's way after. Way after. It was just recently. It was just a few months ago. It started in December. My case started in December. Here's what happened. In a nutshell, not to go through the whole thing, I have a 24/7 bar right next to my gym. And it's a bad place. Any 24/7 bar is not going to be a good place. There's drunks, drug addicts, drug dealers, bikers, and they always spill into my parking lot. And in my parking lot, which is also a 24/7 gym, I have, waitresses, dancers, people from the cruise ships coming in all hours of the night. And they're intimidated by these people. So several times I came there and chased them, middle of the night, early in the morning. My trainers, normally they just go, they'll give you the fingers, tell you, go fuck yourself, and they'll walk away. This morning, two of them decided to approach me. Okay. And when I told them to take their cars and go, first answer was, what's your problem? I turned to walk away. I point them to my signs. You're trespassing. This is for members only. You're taking up my, whatever. I says, just look at all the signs. And they're all around. So I turned to walk away. He keeps walking towards me. And again, I got a curse. He says, I'll park wherever the fuck I want. And as he says that, he's walking closer and closer and closer. So boom, I gave him a pop. I didn't even go to work on him. I didn't throw a combination. I threw a pop to stop him, and I got myself like this. It's on the film for the second guy, and my hands were ready for him. He didn't move. So it ended there. There were still words, but there was a cop across the street that comes and said he saw the whole thing on his binoculars, and I get arrested for throwing the first punch. Now they're trying to make me cop out to battery or disorderly conduct. I says, nah.
What were they offering you for a plea agreement? Did they offer you jail time? 30
days plus a year probation and some kind of nonsense community service. I says, no. I said, they had the film of from my gym. So it only proved that I threw the first punch. Everything else, there was no audio and stuff. So they didn't know.
You have the film?
Yeah. So now my lawyer subpoenas the police tapes. And on the police tapes that they didn't even look at because they thought they had the whole case right on my camera, you see this kid going like this to his other 8 friends because 8 of them were coming around. I probably would have got hurt if the cop didn't come because I'm not going to fight 8 guys. And these 2 guys were half my age, okay? Yeah. They're going like this to me. They're going like this to their friends. So something was up. It was almost a dare to come and challenge me, the owner of the gym. And also, he gets asked who that guy was in the same uniform. And he says, oh, I don't know him. He says, he got the same uniform. He says, oh, I work with him. The so-called victim I'm talking about is on the stand saying this. Then he says, what's his name? He tries to say he doesn't know. But he says, no, come on. You work with the guy. He says, oh, yeah, his name is this. So he's breaking him down. Then he says, what did you hand him? He said, I didn't hand him anything. You didn't? So he puts it up on the camera, the police video, because now the cop was talking to me. So he didn't know that the dash cam was still playing on him. You see him handing off what appears to be a knife, and you could tell it's a knife, to his friend. And now the jury sees he just denied handing him something. He says, oh, I forgot what I handed him. So we diffused him. The problem was my witness now got led down a path that led to me throwing the first punch. So I was the aggressor. Okay, that I shortened up. All that kid had to do was change the word of his answer a little bit and say, well, he wasn't being aggressive yet because they're showing us 5 feet apart. Nobody's aggressive. Then another one 5 feet apart. Finally, he shows me punching the guy. So he's, yeah, yes, Larry. Who's the aggressor now? It's Larry, isn't it? Yes. You know, he got led down the path. So now I had to take the stand. And I couldn't let anything from New York come up because then my past would have been brought in, which the prosecutor and the judge already knew about. That's why they didn't like me. So I had to be careful. My attorney did not want the martial arts background to come in. But I said, I'm fine with that. I said, we could, you know, and he agreed. We could, you know, they can understand my position. So I went on. He asked me about my history, and I said, I'm doing it since I'm a kid. I still do it to an extent. I said, at 55, about 10 years ago, I retired. I don't spar anymore. I don't do, you know, I just teach it, and I use it for conditioning. Blah, blah. So I looked at, there was an old woman in the jury who wound up being like a leader, and I looked at her, and I said, I've taught women's self-defense seminars. I looked at the firemen, and I said, I taught law enforcement self-defense seminars. I looked at the rest of them. I said, taught children and teenagers self-defense seminars. I says, but I learned from people way better than me, than I'll ever be. Okay. I says, but I also learned if I was sitting in my yard and a venomous snake was hissing at my feet, I'm not waiting for him to bite me. They got quiet, the jury, they were shaking their heads. No further questions. The prosecutor tried to get me to say I invited them in, and which I says, no. You're saying that, not me. I told them to leave. I didn't invite them onto my parking lot because they're trying to take away the trespassing. Long story short, the jury went out for about an hour, came in, asked a couple of questions, which I took as good. At least I thought they were throwing out the assault and battery.
Yeah.
But I thought maybe they would try to get me on a lower charge. But when they asked for the pictures and it came up again that he was handing off the knife, I saw what they were looking for, and they wanted to know what constitutes a fight. The judge says, we don't have any definition of a fight or a brawl. They went back in, they came out within 5 minutes, and not guilty. It was beautiful.
Yeah, but the judge and the prosecutor
the judge brought in extra deputies. because he thought I was getting convicted, and he was giving me a year. So I would have been gone for a year. So all these podcasts would have been for nothing because I would have been in jail again. Oh, yeah. Wow. So anyway, but I mean, we're talking about a tough guy. He brought that up like I want to fight everybody. That's where I saw it, on the video, the last video. I said, what was I supposed to do? What would have he done? What if he ran away? Would have that made him a tough guy? I wasn't going to run away from these guys. I didn't look for the trouble. I didn't call them onto my property, but I guess I'm not a tough guy because I hit him. I cracked him. I don't know what that makes me.
He said you changed.
Let me ask you. What makes somebody a tough guy? I want to ask you, Billy. What makes somebody a tough guy? Is it Roy DeMeo because he kills 200 people and chops up the bodies?
That makes him a psychopath.
Well, it's not that he's not a tough guy, but I mean,
my idea of a tough guy has changed over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I grew up with guys that became champions in kickboxing in the ring, but they're not going to kill anybody, not going to shoot anybody, but they're champion kickboxers. That means they're not tough guys because they won't shoot somebody. I don't understand this. What made then the other thing is the guy's a tough guy because he took his life sentence. I'll give them that's a hard guy. Doesn't mean he's tough. Doesn't mean he can fight or but he's just throwing that around like it's nothing. I don't know what constitutes a tough guy, really. Okay, but I don't know why he brought up that assault thing. Like I want to fight people. What was I supposed to do? Run away? That was a silly thing to say.
He said that changed.
And when another thing I'm going to say, he had a beef with a friend of mine. I'm not going to mention his name over a car. Okay, and it got heated from what I heard. I wasn't there. He called me. What are you calling me for? But you know what I did? I called the other guy and I got really nasty with him. Because at that moment, I felt what I felt originally with Gregory. I said, this poor bastard spent all these years away. You don't want to raise a finger to help him? You want to make it harder on him to get a car from his daughter? I said, it got bad that me and that guy didn't talk for a while. But just recently, I called him to apologize because of the way this guy's behaving right now. I called him, I said, you know what? I'm sorry I even got involved in that. Because now I know there's probably more to the story.
So after all these years, you didn't have to do anything for this guy. You could have severed ties and just lived your life.
I didn't have to. Yeah, even when he was away, I didn't have to do nothing. I didn't have to answer the phone. I didn't have to send money to. No, I didn't have to. Of course not. Nobody does. Nobody
do you regret helping him? Do you regret helping him?
Wait a minute. Nobody did anything for me. Nobody raised a finger to help me during the war or when I was in prison waiting for my life sentence. Instead, they tried to rob me and take my business.
He says you owed him this stuff. You owed him this money.
Listen, there was $60,000 that I was paying his father juice, okay? And I didn't get this much space during the war. If I had to go in front of Wild Bill's club to collect some money, I had to go, even though I was a target, okay? They didn't want to hear nothing. I had to pay that every week, okay? I didn't get one. Now when I go away, and me and Jimmy are getting about $3,000 each a week for our families, that kept getting taken away little by little. At the end, they brought Jimmy $180 and sent me $180. They were stealing our business, okay? Because they knew I was done. Greg, it didn't come out yet. It didn't come out yet that Greg was bad. So I didn't flip. I was working on 18 to 20, but they were at 24. I was trying to get it lower. I said, Jimmy, I was negotiating to bring Jimmy in. But once, like I said, once it came out that he was bad, my whole thinking changed. I never had. I was in there for a year fighting the case. A lot of money, a lot of everything. And nobody thought for a second that I was going to make a deal. Okay? And I couldn't while Greg was alive. I'll say it again. I've said it before. If he wasn't bad and I flipped, my whole family would get killed just to shut me up. So I was not going to put my family in jeopardy. Okay? So that's,
You waited until after he passed away?
No. I waited till it came out that he was bad. When he went in front of the judge and pleaded for leniency because of all the help he gave the government, I says that next day I knew my life was done, maybe over, because they were insisting I had to know, just like they did to Gregory when he had the beef in prison.
And you were defending him. You were defending him in prison, right?
Yeah.
Senior.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I went after guys that Vic Arena, Frank Lastarino, another guy, Mikey, that were heavyweights in other families that were approaching me before. And I went after, I said, calling him a rat. Are you kidding me? After we just did that, well, you know. But then a day later, it came out in the newspaper. So it was already circulating that this was out there. I just couldn't believe it. I mean, doesn't he have his own life story to tell? Go tell your own life story. You could be Scarface too. You know, taking over the deal. I think that's a great story. Go tell that, how you were taking over spots and whacking guys that wouldn't come over or friends because they found God. That's your story. I have a unique story. And then he wants to say the part about his father not knowing. There's tapes of Linda telling me how much she loves and misses me. And they tried to use that to get me to flip. And if that was truly the case that he didn't know, don't you think his FBI...
What, that you were with Linda?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Don't you think...
A lot of people knew, right?
Yeah, but don't you think... Well, Jimmy was with me every step of the way. He knows... Okay, I have a cousin that knows because they used to see my car parked in that driveway all night long. You know, they know what was going on. Okay, but obviously it was kept secret. They couldn't never say anything, and neither did I. And neither did Greg. I mean,
and there's no way that you could have messed with her that long.
No,
and then now find out.
Then he's a fool. Then the guy's not so smart. He's blind. He's not cunning. Everything we say about him is false. If he didn't know, okay. But the proof is his own guy. His own partner in the FBI would have told him, this kid is sleeping with your girl. Right? I mean, he would have had to tell him. It did. That's how close they were. So, I mean, and Linda never came out because she knew. Big Linda never came out and denied it in all these years because it was true. And there was too much truth to it. And there was just what I said. She knows the things she said over the phones to me. You know, it was almost too open in certain circles.
Yeah, but when she was telling Greg Sr. about you two, right? You were worried what he's gonna do, right?
Well, no, before. Once I found out who he was, of course I was worried.
You're like, oh shit.
And it still went on for, probably, that was 6 months, maybe another 6 months or so before I met him. And then she started paving the way to make it a three-way romance. That was okay. And we could go on like this. And I always said it, if nothing else, she was very convincing. Like I had nothing to worry about, even though I was worried, until we had that conversation. Okay. And that conversation is real, is life-changing, is any conversation I ever had, ever will have again. Because I was on eggshells. I was a little bit scared, but I just believed him leading me. I believed him, what he was telling me. And I already knew he had all the other women. So he confided in me in lots of things. So, it's to say that is totally, if you know what it is, he's trying to protect his father's honor.
And that's understandable, right?
Yeah, of course. But
he's trying to say some things aren't true, like that his father didn't help with the commission, help give information on the commission to get wiretaps. He wasn't that big of a rat.
He made a comment that also that they just used his father's name. Why him? Why not use Carmine Cesar? Why not use Whitey Bulger? Why not use why did they pick him? Because he was a top echelon informant for 30 years.
And he was like a rogue agent because he didn't have to go and testify with cases. He would just give them information.
But it was better for them this way to get the information they needed. And then the other guys flip along the way. When he got caught with the credit cards, he was with the Secret Service, who would arrest you for the fake credit cards. Okay. But he got released to the FBI. Why did the FBI take it over? That's where me and Linda picked him up 4 hours later. And he came out with a smile on his face and he winked at me like everything's okay. But I'm just thinking this guy's amazing. He's a god. How does he walk away from this and get no time? And Gregory himself said it. How did that happen? How is he not on the top of Gregory's indictment? He was the boss. Even when Gregory became skipper, Greg was still calling the shots, and Gregory, again, I'm going to say it, got the rawest deal out of everybody, No, say he knew, and to say he did. And Linda, like I said, I want to go back to with Linda. She never, ever denied it anywhere. Came out and said, oh, he's a liar. Where's he coming up with this? She couldn't. And one of her sisters knew. One of her sisters knew, so she must have told one of her sisters because they weren't surprised when it came out. I won't name her. There's only 2 sisters, but one of them knew. Okay, so
then you got this. This is from Marie Perez.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You see that this stuff. I make it clear. None of this stuff came from me.
Yeah.
You media people keep sending me stuff. This about Greg sleeping with Linda's best friend and me getting scraps. Who the frig? I mean, we know who wrote it. I didn't write that. So
it says while you're banging one in the black, he couldn't see. He couldn't see you because he was sneaking with the one in the white.
Yeah. I mean,
Staxx, you can blame him for giving you his scraps, but he wouldn't have told either one of you that. Only reason you all didn't write that in your book together. Oh, and how funny. He literally did that in her face, proved by pictures, not lies, with huge ass smile on his face.
I didn't even read that whole thing. When they sent it to me, I read up to the scraps and I put it out. I don't even know what all that means. Literally did that in her face. And what does she mean wrote a book together? I didn't write a book with anybody. I wrote my own book.
She wasn't around anybody.
There was another one that got sent out, not by me.
Yeah, these are all from Maria Perez. He's completely changed, and he used that against him. Greg doesn't read anything about him or his father.
Oh, but
so
the part in blue. The part in blue is what they sent me.
Oh, through
Laverne, meaning me, is always talking about her. I told her he was just mad at Junior for getting her when he was secretly. How sick is that? You're writing that Greg Jr. slept with Big Linda? That ain't my words. Okay, so if that's true, there's something wrong. If it's not true, who's the liar? Who's putting this shit out? Not me.
And this is from Maria Perez. This is from Greg Jr.'s girl.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So, and these are the people that are calling me all these names. Well, basically liar. They tried the gay thing, but I don't think that went too far. I mean she doesn't have any firsthand knowledge about anything, though. It's all secondhand knowledge from Greg, right? They know each other 2 years. Nothing. She's just hurling it. Unfortunately, little Linda is behind a lot of this too, with the lie. Everything's a lie. And says something about the Nikki Black kid. I'm going to talk a little bit about the war now too.